deal and face the wheel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the End of the World podcast, and we are here today to talk about Beyond Thunderdome. But before we get beyond Thunderdome, we have to talk about the news and whatnot. So before we get to an unfortunate passing, Travis, how have you been?
Well, other than what we'll talk about, it's been very cool. It's been very good. Just over the weekend, got a message from my daughter. She wanted to come stay here. She wanted to. She's kind of had her fill of living with her grandparents and wanted to come live here. So we got her here now.
Wow, nice. That's cool
Yeah,
news.
it's very
That's
cool.
really cool
And
news.
and she was in Abilene, which I believe you know a bit about. Um,
Yeah, we go way back.
Yeah. Yeah. That she's been trying to like land a job there because, after like Lubbock didn't really work out for her, she was there and she's trying to get, just land a job there for months, just trying and getting nothing. She gets here, she'd kind of called some places ahead of time or, applied to some places ahead of time. And the day she got here, they were already calling her. And she
Nice.
had an interview the next day, so Tuesday. And then, as of yesterday, they called her and said, "You got it." So she's already got a job within like 3 days of getting here, within 2 days,
Nice.
or So
Nice.
yeah, so it's already looking up on that. So, but
Well,
yeah,
that's
so
cool.
that'll be
Very good
it's
news.
really exciting. Yeah, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's been really cool.
Yeah, very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. It's
yeah.
awesome to hear.
Yeah. Well, how's
Very
things
cool to
going
hear.
in your neck of the woods?
I don't really have anything to report.
Yeah.
Nothing really interesting to say. It's just kind of been one of those weeks where, things happen. We were going to be recording with my wife, however, she is
Hmm.
not feeling well. She
Oh
I
man.
think thinking it's COVID. I'm not
Oh no,
100% sure yet, waiting on the results of
man.
the test, but she is not here tonight. So we will possibly hear from her later in the show. Might
Oh, okay.
record afterwards and pick her brain on Miss Tina Turner and Thunderdome. She did
Awesome.
watch it with me, so
Oh, very cool.
she got to see part of it. So, yeah. Other than that, nothing really interesting on in my neck of the woods. Although worldwise, we
Oh
are
yeah.
approaching the inauguration day next Monday, so that'll be something to dread
Ig-
and
I was gonna
also look
say
forward to,
ignore.
depending on and or ignore, depending on your
Yeah.
prerogative.
Yeah. Really.
So that's coming up. But bad news today, we lost
Yeah.
David Lynch, which is
Yeah.
like holy shit.
That
I
was.
remember I read it and immediately called my wife and was like, "Hey, David Lynch died." She was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Damn, that sucks." And then I think I texted you
Yeah.
and V's like, "David Lynch died." And you were like, "Shit." And then it was
Yeah.
like, so
Immediately.
I just one of those things where I just so happened to be on Reddit like
Hmm.
the within like a 3 or 2 minute window of when the post was posted on at least the subreddits I follow. It was
Right. Yeah.
probably
The
some of the bigger places like that, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The whenever I saw, well, when I looked at Reddit earlier, because I kind of wanted to see that, I saw someone else even was I don't know if you're familiar. Oh, yeah, you know him. Bob Euchre also
hmm
passed.
yeah,
Yeah.
I saw
So,
that as well.
a couple tonight.
Yeah. David Lynch was a real hard one for me. I'm a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
David Lynch fan. I have
Yes.
just a couple of days ago, me and my wife watched Wild at Heart. I love that
Oh, yeah.
movie. Just a couple days ago, like yesterday or the day before, I was watching Eraserhead.
Oh, were you?
And yeah, I'm a big David Lynch fan. I've always liked his movies.
Yeah.
I own a lot of them. Other than Straight Story, I think I own all of them. I even own like his weird ones, like Inland Empire, weird ones. They're all kind of weird in their own way.
Oh, okay.
Um, my introduction to David Lynch was kind of like in a weird one. Uh, First got into his movies late into high school when I first started kind of like discovering weird movies. There was
Hmm.
a documentary I watched called oh God, what was the name of it? I can't. It literally just popped into my head and then escaped it. I'll
Yeah.
think of it
Oh,
later,
yeah.
tack it on at the end or something. But
There you go.
it was basically a documentary about 70s films and
Hmm.
how they were made. and Eraserhead was heavily featured in that documentary, and that was kind of
Oh,
one of those
awesome.
things that I had never heard of the movie before then. That
Hmm.
documentary that just so happened to talk about it immediately, like the next time I went to rent movies, that was one of the ones I was looking for, was Eraserhead, and I found it,
Yeah.
and I still have that copy. I never returned it.
Oh, very cool.
Because it's a hard movie to find. Like you just unless you're gonna go online and buy it from a boutique place or buy it from
Hmm.
Amazon, it's not one you like ever really see much in the wild. And then my next David Lynch movie that I watched was a couple years later. I was in college and had money of
Hmm.
my own, access to a car, access to Hastings, and
Yep.
Hastings used to do ridiculously used movies like 2.99,
Hmm.
and one of the ones they had was Mulholland Drive.
Oh, yep.
And I remember buying that movie and watching it and not a lick of it. And then having to watch it again and still like being like, what is this movie about? And then just kind of like discovering more and more of his movies from there.
Yep.
Elephant Man is also a
Oh, of
really
course.
great one. And then it's kind of weird that like he's one of those directors that later on I found out that I had actually seen a movie of his before that I
Hmm.
watched the documentary, and that was the movie Dune.
Yep.
So my best friend growing up, who will probably show up on an episode eventually, Jamie,
Yeah,
he and
fingers
I
crossed.
hung out, and the one of the first movies that we watched together when we were little kids.
Yeah.
Look at his DVHS collection. What movies do you have? What can we watch? You know, we're playing Final Fantasy VII. We got to have something on in the background. What do we have? Dune. I've never seen that. All right, let's watch Dune. And then, being like, oh, this is not Star Wars at all. um, and going through that whole thing and then not realizing that until like years later that that was his movie as well,
Hmm.
and then being like, oh shit, okay, like it's all making sense now, right? That
Right.
movie
Yeah.
was weird as fuck, and now it's like, okay, yeah, he makes weird movies, or quote unquote weird movies. And another, I'm just kind of talking about David Lynch memories now. It's
Yeah.
a personal one that connected to my life is when Inland Empire came out. I really, really wanted to watch Inland Empire. Like
Hmm.
for whatever reason, I just the way it was filmed, because the camera he used to film it, I happen to own that camera, and
Oh.
it's not a very good camera. It's a very shitty camera. But uh, the whole idea of like a 3 hour almost narrativeless movie appealed to
Hmm.
my art stupid ass little brain,
Yeah.
wannabe poser
No,
bitch
I get
boy.
that.
And I remember I found it in the weirdest place. So when it came out on DVD, I went to Hastings and don't got it. Barnes and Noble,
Ah.
no, what? No, we don't have that movie. What are you talking about? I found the DVD at a fucking Walmart.
Well, really?
Yeah, a Walmart in Midland, Texas, of all
Huh.
places.
Yeah,
Weird.
really.
Weird. Still to this day, one of those like weird memories in my mind where I'm like, I found Inland Empire at a Walmart in Midland, Texas. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
of all the places
Yeah,
to
that
find a David Lynch movie, very Lynchian of itself, in a weird way.
right. Oh, yeah, that is.
Yeah. So I love David Lynch. Wild at Heart is maybe my favorite movie of his, and it's not
Yeah.
even his best movie. And it's the one I like watching the most because it's got Nicolas Cage being just absolutely fucking ridiculous, and it's hard not to enjoy Nicolas Cage being absolutely
Oh,
fucking ridiculous.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it for the news. So I guess let's just talk about Beyond fucking Thunderdome, right?
Let's get into it.
Let's get into Beyond Thunderdome. It's time that we get beyond it. It's hard to.
Yep.
Movie
Yeah.
came out on July 10th, 1985. That's a relevant date for our Travis trivia section
Oh,
later on in the
yeah.
show. Just like the last one, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about George Miller or Mel Gibson here because we talked about them in the first episode, which
Yep.
a lot of people listen to. First off, thank
Oh,
y'all.
awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
really appreciated the love. We've gotten the most listens to on our last two episodes that we've had on any episode we've ever put out across all the platforms that we've done. So like
Yeah.
over 100 episode, over 100 listens on YouTube, and then a few
Mm.
more on Spotify, more on Apple. So it's just all across the board. A lot of people listening to us talk about Mad Max. So thank y'all so much. And
Yeah.
if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, do so. We'll put an episode out every single week, rain, sun, shine, or you know
other
even if the
precipitation
world,
means
yeah, any kind of weather. I was gonna say, even if the
yeah.
world ends and I have to scream into a very long can in the
Yeah.
with a soda with a string attached to it, somebody will hear my message. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, thank you guys, and yeah, so let's get into the movie. I guess we've talked about the day.
Yeah,
So
really. It's been a
we
day.
will talk a little bit about Mel Gibson because this is going to be our sayonara to Mr. Melly Gibson in our Mad Max universe, as he
Yep.
does not continue on the journey after this. But we will always leave a light on for him, or well,
Absolutely.
as
Well,
long as that light is not surrounded by anyone of any kind of perhaps Jewish origin, he would not
right.
want to come to the light at that point.
Yeah,
He
then yeah, I
very
was gonna
opposed to it.
say,
Very opposed to it, in
well,
fact.
yeah, we need to, yeah, like keep him from doing any harm if possible.
There's definitive stipulations.
Yeah, keep him from doing as little harm,
All right, so we will be talking about the co-director though, because this is the first movie and the only movie in the series where we have a co-director, and the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is also the first time Max would be a PG-13 rating, which would not be the last time, but the first
Right.
time here. And George Miller after this would obviously do a lot more kid movies, so you kind of get a feeling that he's kind of building to that with this film at least. Kind of, you get some strong indications.
Yeah, it's kind of like a segue almost. It's like it's his Venn diagram where they come together, like the two parts
Hmm.
of his career kind of come together with this.
Yeah, yeah, good, exactly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This was originally not even a Mad Max movie. Originally, it was actually envisioned as something completely different. Originally, he had in mind a post-apocalyptic kind of Lord of the Flies thing going on
Oh.
where they would encounter an adult. And it just so happened that later on in the process of writing it out, he just decided to make the adult Max. And so it became a Mad Max movie.
Oh, that's
So it's
cool.
kind of like a movie of two halves where it has like the second half was kind of written maybe beforehand, and then they kind
Hmm.
of added the first half to kind of give it context of how he ends up
Mm,
interacting with these children.
that
And
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, it's a movie of two halves, and I have two different feelings about it.
Yeah.
About kind of how those halves kind of work together. Um, this was
I,
also they had to work to get Mel Gibson to come back to this, so
I'm
he
not
was
shocked.
he was kind of done with it after Road Warrior. His career was kind of beginning to ascend, and after this movie, 2 years later, he would star in the first Lethal Weapon,
Yeah.
which Lethal Weapon has its own production disaster nightmare of how many different people were going to be cast in that movie before it became Mel Gibson. But
Uh,
in that movie, he kind of becomes that role of Riggs, and it
hmm.
takes off from there into superstardom, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So he only came back under certain conditions, not
Hmm.
necessarily ones that we know, but one thing that we
Right.
can guarantee is he got an 80% pay raise and made $1.2 million to be in this movie.
Oh.
So almost half of the budget for the second movie, $3 million, he got
Yeah.
as just his salary. So
Hey, I mean, if
he
you
also did
can.
almost all of his own stunts.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And in the production, in the scouting of locations to make this movie, his George Miller's production partner, who had made the other two movies with him, as well as several other TV movies they had worked on together, he died in a plane crash or a helicopter crash. I'm not 100%
Oh.
sure which. And so this immediately made George not even really want to do the movie, right? And
Right.
so he kind of, which is why he has a directing partner here, because the loss coupled with the stress and the everything else going on in his life at the time, he
Yeah.
definitely felt like he kind of had taken on a bit more than he was necessarily willing to do, and so he needed a partner, so he got a partner as well.
Okay, well that's cool.
Yeah. And the partner is a man by the name of George Ogilvy, I believe is his name, an Australian
Oh, okay.
director.
Yeah.
He also made a bunch of TV movies. They actually made a TV movie together, which is how they knew that they could work together pretty well.
Oh, there you go.
And he would go on to make several movies, several TV movies, very, very Australian. Couple with Russell Crowe, I haven't
Oh,
seen any
okay.
of them, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you the quality or anything like that. Not anything I've seen. Not anything like Mad Dog Morgan or anything kind of exploitation-y that I would like. The
Yeah.
writer here is the same writer as the Road Warrior, so we have the same writing team of George Miller and Terry Hayes coming back for the
Okay, there we
second
go.
one. The musician, the score, and the director did change though. So previously, it was Brian May, not the guy
Hmm.
from Queen, and
Right.
he had worked on the first two. He did not work on this one, so completely different
Uh,
guy makes the music here.
yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah, and this film, upon release and still to this day, is often considered the worst of the series, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
Some people would consider it the best of the series, depending on who you ask. It is definitely
Hmm.
one of those movies that it kind of depends on if you are able to turn off your nostalgia, especially for people like my age who maybe kind of grew up watching this on TV a lot, and
Yeah.
at the time loving it. Like I said, whenever we first talked about the first Mad Max, this was my introduction to Mad Max. Was Beyond
Right.
Thunderdome,
Yeah.
watching this on TNT and loving the shit out of it, and just
Right.
thinking it was so much fun. Now that I got older, I have a little bit of a different perspective on it. So
Hmm.
that's a little bit about the background here. In terms of our casting, which is always fun to talk about.
Oh, yes.
And let's see. So we talk about Tina Turner, obviously. You can't talk about
Uh-huh.
this movie without talking about Auntie. So Tina Turner is here. Do you know of any other Tina Turner movies that she actually starred in?
I don't think I can.
She's in two of them that you might have seen. Last Action
Oh,
Hero and Tommy.
okay. I've seen both of those, and yeah, you're
Yep.
right. That's
Yep.
right because
Yep. Yep.
she was. That's right because she was. Oh, the Acid Queen. What was her first?
hmm
What was her name?
I have no idea, dude. I could not
Oh,
tell
do you
you
not
that
know from
anymore.
Tommy?
Oh, I
She's
don't remember off the top of my head. No.
it's
Forgive me.
something
It's been a while.
something. It rhymes, so it's like the Acid
Well, yeah,
Queen.
yeah. Something, something.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know her name though.
I can't remember, but that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And
She also
and
does the
it.
soundtrack to this movie as well,
Oh
obviously.
yeah,
Coming in with two hot number songs that we'll talk about in just a second.
yes,
Yeah, so she died last year in 20, well, 2 years ago now. We're in 2025. She died in 2023, sadly.
yeah.
An amazing musician. So many,
Oh,
so many,
absolutely.
so many killer songs.
Oh yeah.
Just and two of them are in this fucking movie. She recorded two songs for this movie. We Don't Need Another Hero,
Yep.
which went to number one in Canada, number two in
Hell
the
yeah.
United States, and number three in the UK.
Oh man, that's
So
awesome.
pretty fucking cool.
That
She
is.
also did recorded One for the Living, which peaked at
Yes.
number 15 in the US.
All right. That's decent.
And One for the Living actually won the Grammy for Best Female Rock Vocalist.
Ooh. I did
So
like it.
it's a good song. They're both
Yeah.
very catchy. I've been walking around all the last couple of days just being like, we don't need another hero. We can't
Heck yeah.
sing too much of the song because
Oh
apparently
yeah.
she is very her estate is very litigious on
And you're
on
very
YouTube.
accurate. So
I'm very on point, yes. Um, Other character we're talking about is Bruce Spence, who was the gyro captain in the second film.
Yep.
Shows up in this movie as a different character,
Yep.
kind of, but
Kind of.
also like he represents a similar idea as the gyro captain, but he's
Yes.
not the same character.
No.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
but it's be funny if they were. I like that he's not the same character. I think that's
But
kind of
they
fun.
I do like that he kind of they have a little bit of recognition, but they just blow it off. Like they start that,
Yeah.
they so it's a nod,
Yeah, there's a little nod there. It's not quite as like as like on the head as like and obvious as say you ever seen Maverick with Mel Gibson? The
Yes.
part where Danny Glover.
Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah,
right.
Danny Glover's robbing the bank and Mel
Yes,
Gibson
and
like
he
gives him a
pulls his
look and
face.
they look at each
Yeah.
other like no, 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 no. And they look again like no, 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 no. It's
Yeah,
like
that's
if you see
right.
Lethal Weapon, you get it. Yeah. But it's not quite that bad here, but they do give each
Right.
other like a little like there's that look for half a second of like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. So that's kind of cute. But yeah,
It
he is
is.
technically playing a different character.
Yep.
And we have some other cast members here that have actually been in some of the other Mad Max movies. They kind of reappear in different characters,
Mm,
which is interesting.
it
And
is.
some of the cast that was in it was just apparently, according to the casting director, just a bunch of random punks and goths they met just kind of hanging around.
Oh,
And
there
we're
you go.
like, yeah, y'all, come do this. So, so yeah, it's a little bit about the background. Movie cost $10
Yeah.
million to make, which was at the
Hmm.
time the most expensive Mad Max movie ever made. Made
Yeah.
$36 million, which unfortunately was the lowest of any Mad Max movie at that point.
Still,
And
still a good return though. I mean,
still a pretty decent return. Yeah, especially when
yeah.
you consider 1.2 million of that 10 million is just for old mail boy there, you know.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, yeah. So originally, at least at one point in the scripting, Terry Hayes said that they considered killing off Max and just ending it right there,
Oh,
ending his story there. As we are in
yeah.
2025, Max does not have an end right now. His
No,
character has not died in the canon of the story so far. So
right.
I guess maybe Max's end is coming in, and maybe in addition in a different tale. Who knows?
Maybe they'll just kind of keep it going. I don't know how far is too far with it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's too true. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Tina Turner did win the NAACP Image Award for her role in this movie, so she got
Awesome.
several awards with the Grammy and then the NAACP Image Award.
Heck
And,
yeah.
and she was also nominated for a Golden Globe as well for the music in the
Nice.
film for the best
Oh yeah.
song. Yeah, so yeah, they
Yeah.
the way they did the co-directing was kind of interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
apparently Miller kind of stuck to doing the action scenes, and Ogilvy kind of worked on the talking scenes. Is
Oh,
kind of how
okay.
they broke it up, but they were both on set together at the same time. Apparently, while they co-directed the TV show, they kind of developed a relationship and a way of doing things where they kind of both shared responsibilities.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
one of the reasons why he brought him onto this movie is because he just really liked that way of doing things. He
That's
kind of
cool.
thought like, yeah, this works. I like the way this works. I would like to continue working on this. And when everything happened at the beginning with, his friend dying, his production is, all of these
Yeah.
things happening, that's kind of, I think that's kind of what precipitated him kind of being like, hey, let's give that guy a call. He's
Yeah.
good at his job. And obviously, if you lived in the 90s, you saw the biggest reference to this movie was in California Love with Tupac and Dr. Dre, where
Mm-hmm.
they actually show up in the Thunderdome, and they have all the dress, and everyone is driving around in gear inspired by Mad Max, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a fun music video. You should definitely give that one
Yes.
a watch if you have not. And
Yeah.
one of the last things I have written down before we talk about the plot, and then I'll sprinkle in some little notes here and there,
Mm-hmm.
is this movie was filmed in the exact same location as Blood of Heroes.
Ooh.
So yeah, the very Australian and very striking in its appearance. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
one of those places that definitely stands out at you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is taking place 20 years after the first film. So that's how
Oh,
long
okay.
Max has been around for. Now, obviously, Mel Gibson is, I think, 29 when they made the movie. So
Oh
not
yeah.
not even nearly as old as Max is supposed to be. But
Yeah.
I do think he pulls it off pretty well
I think so. Yeah, they gave
with
him
his
that 5
ability
o'clock
to,
shadow. They gave him,
yeah.
the gray, like painted gray hair, and they made it work.
Yeah, and then after this movie, so you would think that like George was just done with it and didn't want to do anything more and was just left the
Hmm.
character alone until Fury Road. It's actually not what happened. And we'll talk a little bit
Oh.
more about that when we talk about Fury Road. But originally, he envisioned a TV show coming out of this with
Oh.
another actor taking on the Max role. And unfortunately, that actor was going to be John Blake, who got hurt in a car wreck and unfortunately ended up paralyzed, not really able to
Oh.
talk. And so the TV show kind of shut down. But it was going to
Yeah.
kind of pick up the Max's story and do it kind of like in a TV show form, which unfortunately we never got to see any of. But in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm kind of like imagining like David Carradine, Kung Fu, like
Oh, yeah.
traveling the wastelands, running into people, maybe a little bit of like kind of like what you see now, but like in Mandalorian, but like a little bit
Right.
less low sci-fi, because
Yeah.
Mad Max has always been low sci-fi.
Hey,
So I think that something like that could have been cool. Shit, I'd
that
watch
would have
that
been
now.
cool. Yeah. Hell yeah. I
give
would
him his
like them
chance to
to
make
make
his
that
the
show.
Mad Max TV show. Yeah. Well, we'll talk
Yes.
about it more, but someone who was actually at one point suggested to be Max in the TV show, and this of course never happened,
Mhm.
was Bruce Campbell.
Oh.
Yeah. That would have been cool. That
That
would have
would have
been a
been
cool one.
really cool.
That would
And
have been
oh
a pretty
man,
cool one. That would have been a pretty
because
cool
he'd
one.
bring that Ash energy.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have
Yeah.
that in there. So let's talk about the songs on the charts before
Oh
we get
yes.
into the plot of this movie, and then we'll sprinkle in little other tidbits as we get into the different parts and
Yes.
sprockets and wrenches and whatnot.
This would be the first movie I was alive for, so
Yeah,
you know,
July
for
10th,
when it came out.
1985. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I was still not born. I am 2 years away from joining this earth by the time
Yeah.
this movie comes out. So, any idea of who's on the charts on the top five?
Oof.
I will say
85.
I know all of these songs and I know all of these artists. So there you go.
Oh, okay.
It
Well,
tells you what kind of what we're dealing with. Dealing with some heavy hitters, as the quote
yeah.
unquote would say.
Okay. So probably something like Madonna?
No, Madonna is not
No,
in the
not
top
yet.
five, but she was in the top 10. She was in the
Oh,
top
okay.
10, but not in the
Gotcha.
top five.
Okay. Trying to think who else might be thrown. Oh man. Maybe Prince?
Prince is number three. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Do you have any
Awesome.
idea what Prince song would be number
Oh,
three?
85, number 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna
Yes,
go
sir.
with When Doves Cry.
Close. Very
Really?
close. Not Computer Blue either. I know you were gonna go there next.
Yeah.
That's obviously the best song on that entire album. However, Raspberry Beret.
Oh, Raspberry Beret.
Raspberry
Got it.
Beret. Raspberry.
Very
So
good
number
song though.
three. Amazing song. Love me some Prince. Number three, Raspberry Beret. What you got next? Any other
Oh,
guesses for one, two, or four, or five?
oof. I am going to. Oh man, I'm probably gonna go so bad here. This might not be the right time. Maybe Devo?
No Devo. No
No
Devo.
Devo.
But
Well, of course.
close, kind of close with number two, because I would say
Yeah.
Devo is like an underrated new wave band.
Uh-huh.
At their core, a little punkish. The number
Yeah.
two band is also a little punkish and also a very underrated new wave band.
Okay. Oh man, I'm gonna probably go way out of bounds here, but wouldn't it be like I'm gonna go way off. Ultravox, they're talk about nobody listening to.
No, no
No,
Ultravox in the top
no.
five.
Um,
Also, no
oh god,
Flipper.
no, no.
Also,
Well,
no
maybe some.
Minutemen. You know,
Oh, Depeche Mode, maybe.
Depeche Mode. No, but I'll just tell
No,
you, Duran Duran, number
Duran
two.
Duran. I was getting to the D's.
Yeah, yeah. A View to
Okay.
Kill by Duran Duran.
Oh,
A very good
very good
song.
song.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, very good
All
song.
right.
So
Well,
number
I think
one,
I
you got
may have
any
exhausted
guesses?
there. Well, I was
You
gonna
think
say
you're all done?
maybe Lionel Richie, maybe
No, no. More new
no
wavy.
any.
More new wavy.
Oh, we go. Oh, we're sticking with the new wave.
Somewhere between new wave and prog, I would say this one falls.
Oh God.
New wave,
Ooh.
prog, art rock kind of thing.
What Roxy Music?
Very, very pretentious. Not that pretentious.
Oh, not the
Well,
Bryans.
actually, maybe more pretentious.
Oh, really? Oh,
Possibly.
now I'm lost.
Depends on who you ask, you know?
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like his fans are like hardcore his fans. And if you're not one of those people, you probably just are like, oh, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's a him and it's
it
new
is a
wavy.
him. At
Oh,
times art rocky, at
yeah. I'm
times
gonna say
pop rocky.
maybe Morrissey.
Phil Collins.
Oh, Phil Collins. Okay.
Yeah, Susu Studio.
I like Susu Studio.
See, I do too, but I don't like all Phil Collins songs. I find
No, well,
some
no,
of his
because
catalog to be very pretentious.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, because you have songs like
I think
"Easy
he's a little
Lover's" really
pretentious
good.
though.
Oh well, yeah.
So I kind of think
Um,
it kind of works in his favor maybe.
yeah,
But
but there he has some like he has some really
yeah.
good songs. But yeah,
So
there are.
no, number four is a pop rock guy who's kind of obnoxious, and number five is a 70s and 80s rock band that surprised me with a song in the top five at this point.
Ooh,
I don't
Uh,
think you're gonna guess them.
I probably not. I was gonna say like T-Rex or like
No,
Kiss. I don't know.
close with Kiss. Survivor.
Oh, Survivor. Really?
Survivor. Yeah, yeah. The search is over.
I may have heard that.
Not a half bad little song. I listened to it today because I was not familiar until I heard that. It's one of those songs that I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that song before.
Oh, okay, yeah, I
Didn't
can see
know,
that.
forgot it was a Survivor song. And
Yeah.
number 4 is a an interesting one. I don't know if you'll guess number 4. I would never
Yeah.
have guessed number 4.
Oh, I'm curious.
Brian Adams,
Oh,
Heaven.
Brian Adams. Was it summer of '69 or
No, it was Heaven.
oh Heaven?
Heaven.
Maybe I know
Hmm.
that.
Yeah,
I
another one of those songs, just like number 5. It's one of those ones where you're like, oh yeah, that song. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's on the charts when Mad Max went beyond Thunderdome. And we're going to take a little break and we're going to come back and talk about the plot as we get into it and learn all about Max's journey through the wasteland for the third time. See you guys in just a
Yes.
second.
See it.
Hey, joining you guys live in progress for a little announcement. If you've been enjoying the podcast on YouTube, you can now also find it on Spotify by searching Welcome to the End of the World Podcast. Same thing on Apple. Search for Welcome to the End of the World Podcast. You can also find links on the YouTube page to make it real easy for you. Just stopping in for a little update on that from future Matt, returning back to past Matt, live in progress.
Hey. Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back.
We're going to talk about the plot of Beyond Thunderdome and sprinkle in all kinds of little tidbits as we do. And then at the end, we'll talk about our thoughts about this movie, which is, for a lot of people, a nostalgia bomb, especially for myself.
Yeah.
So, right away, movie starts off very differently than every other Mad Max movie. We get a black and white text intro with some fucking killer 80s music in the background,
Yes.
which is strikingly different than the other two Mad Max movies. But this movie is very, very 80s. It is so unbelievably 80s.
Yes.
Every part of it is drenched in the 80s, and I love it. It is such an 80s movie.
It is amazing.
So our actual intro is with the pilot, but the not gyro captain pilot and his son, who is gonna kind of be this force that we kind of see reappearing through the movie again and again. Yep. And the next thing we really get to see after that is you get to see Max, and you see he's in long hair mode, which I guess this is to say, he's lived a little. Like I said, it has been 20 years since the first one. So he's spent more time in this desolate wasteland than he did in, the normal society.
Yeah, really.
So he's been seeing his fair share of stuff. And immediately I kind of like, you have to like, basically when the time this movie was released, the fact that it's the third in the trilogy, the way it's shot, the tone, it's impossible not to compare it to Return of the Jedi.
Right, exactly.
And in this way, Max is kind of like a punk rock Luke Skywalker a little bit in this movie.
I like
that he's just kind of like he's just kind of a dick. He's like what Luke Skywalker maybe would have become if Obi-Wan wouldn't have ever found him.
Right.
He was raised, his parental figures, quote unquote, slaughtered in front of him. If Ben wouldn't have helped him, and he's just kind of left to see the world as like a pitiless, horrible place. If that world had ended, I feel like Luke would have turned into Max in a different world.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so Max is on his way, and this is the first time that the movies really don't start with any kind of car chase,
right?
As well as we almost immediately get Max integrated into some kind of society because he's pretty much immediately thrown into Bartertown.
Yes,
and Bartertown is supposed to, the writer said, kind of represent a society, a like allegory for society, especially in the 80s. But like almost any, everything's for sale if you have the money or the skills. And so Max is in Bartertown and almost immediately gets himself in trouble, as he is wont to do.
Oh yeah,
because he's looking for somebody.
Yeah, that's his whole thing. Yeah,
he's looking for somebody, and he's willing to trade if you can help him out. And this is kind of where we get a little throwback to the Mad Max 1, because after they've discovered Max has some skills based on his ability to whip out some guns. And then, well, I skipped
Right.
over a fantastic scene. The weapon drop off scene is very
Yes.
funny. And this is also like where you kind of get some like Return of the Jedi kind of humor thrown in there,
Hmm.
where we got humor in the first two, but it wasn't necessarily like
Yeah,
this
it
on the
was. Yeah.
head. Which is basically the scene is like they tell Max, "Hey, you can't bring your weapons," and so he starts unloading his guns and
Yeah.
weapons, and he just has an endless supply of them that just never
Oh yeah.
stops. Where you just keep hearing the thud and the thud and another thud and another thud and another thud of all these weapons that he has attached to his body. So
Which I always love when a movie does that.
it's a very fun thing. Yeah, it's very Snake Plissken-y,
Yes.
right? Like it's very much like that, and I like it quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So then we get a throwbacks to Mad Max 1 with the saxophone scene, right? Where
Yeah.
Max is he's taken up to see Tina Turner, and we hear the fucking smooth jazz playing in the background, and then
Yes.
we pan the camera. It's not Max's wife this time. It's a character that we will see again and again and again and again
Yes.
in this fucking movie.
I'm
Eventually,
just glad to see saxophones make it through the apocalypse. Even if I don't,
it
I'm
kind of
happy that
makes sense.
saxophones do. Well, yeah.
I would imagine wood instruments would be too fragile and would probably get burnt or broken for kindling at some
Yeah.
point. Your electric instruments probably aren't going to work
Oh,
because you're probably not
yeah.
going to have power, or if you are, you're going to be using it for things more important than playing some fucking Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
So I feel like saxophones would probably be the most practical.
Mm.
Like all you
And
need
best
is
sounding.
you need to clean them to keep them, not all gummed up
Right.
with your spit, but you could,
Yeah.
you don't need anything for them other than
Mhm.
just your breath and. So I think that makes some sense. Like, if we're looking at
Yeah.
like a post-apocalyptic sense making, that would make some sense that that would survive. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the throwback to Mad Max 1, which, if you've seen it, you get what's happening. If you haven't, that's cool. He's just doing his thing. It's not necessarily anything that's, crazy out of the normal in this universe.
Right.
So then we meet Tina Turner, who is our protagonist, antagonist. She's a hero. She's not a hero. She's kind of an
Yeah.
anti-hero. My wife has a really good take on Tina Turner, and hopefully, whenever we get to hear her, I'll ask her all about Tina. But this role was written with Tina Turner in mind before they even knew that she would say yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So their backup was going to be Jane Fonda,
Oh.
which I
Hmm.
think would have made for a much different movie.
Very different movie. I mean, she could.
Because,
I
yeah,
think she could do it, but
she could totally could do it, but I just feel like she would have taken it a different place than Tina does.
yeah, it would
I
have.
think
Yeah, it would have felt.
Tina brings like a power
Oh,
and a
absolutely.
stage presence that only she would have because she's been on so many stages. Like, when she jumps into that Thunderdome and she starts yelling at everybody as they're whipped up into a frenzy, you feel
Yep.
like she's probably done this before, right?
Oh yeah.
Because she probably has, right? She's probably
Hmm.
gotten on stage with people who are fucking riled up and ready to go and been able
Hmm.
to control them. And I don't know if Jane Fonda would have brought that same energy to it. Personal
Yeah.
opinion. Personal opinion.
No, yeah, I'm with
So
that.
I'm glad that Tina agreed, and she did
Yes.
agree. She didn't any hesitation. She actually went through a lot to be in this movie. She shaved her head so that she could
Yeah.
have the wig attached. So that's why her
Wow.
hairline is so far back. She had no problem doing that. And the chainmail outfit she's wearing the whole time
Yeah.
weighs over 100 pounds.
Oh,
Yeah,
whoa.
so everything she's doing, she's adding on additional 100 pounds onto that. So
That's
pretty
insane.
crazy. She apparently
Yeah.
was a trooper, like didn't complain, didn't have any like it was never like a diva or anything like that. Just was like here to have fun. And you can tell that in the
Oh,
movie. And it's I think one of the
yeah.
things that's great about the movie. I feel like most people who watch this movie love the first half with Tina and Max. And then
Right.
they're disinterested in the second half whenever they're kind of separated from each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And
And
I feel
that's,
like
you know,
that's rightfully to rightful. I
that
feel
has a lot of
Tina,
merit.
yeah, I feel like this is a movie that if you were filming it and you saw the performance she was giving, I would immediately go to the camper and start drafting up new scripts and being like, all right, fucking throw all the I don't give a shit how much we spent on the kids. Like, we'll make a different movie, God damn it.
Yeah, right?
Like we're
Like,
rewriting
seriously.
this. We need more of this. Like
Yeah.
this is it, right? That's
Yeah.
not what happens, unfortunately, as we find out. So Tina did say yes, obviously, and she actually got to keep the chair, and that's kind of cool.
Ooh, that
Yeah,
is
so her
cool.
chair that she shows up in later on, she got to keep
Yes.
that. Yeah. So Tina explains after a surprise attack to see if Max can survive, which is a fun
Yep.
little thing there. And our
That is.
first near death scene for what's his face? I wrote his name down. It's on a different page. Oh God, he dies, almost
Yeah.
dies. Iron Bar,
That's
the
right.
first near death of Iron Bar, who is like the Wile E. Coyote of this movie. He dies like so many times.
Right.
How does he not die over and over and over again? I do not know, but somehow the boy lives. And so Tina explains the plan, which is basically they need Max to help in a multitude of ways. And this is where the movie kind of loses me because this plan, quite frankly, is fucking stupid.
Yeah,
It's a stupid ass plan. Like
it
it
is.
makes no goddamn sense. But basically, in summation, Max has to pretend he works undercover for Tina to infiltrate and eventually challenge Master Blaster to a duel in the Thunderdome so
Yeah.
that Tina can control the underworld and
Yeah.
thereby fully rule Bartertown.
Because right now, who rule Bartertown?
Oh, say it louder. Say
Oh
it
yeah.
louder. A fantastic scene.
Oh, it
An
is.
evil, an evil, evil little man. But
I love it.
you end up loving him by the end because
I
they have to
honestly,
save
from
him.
the very
They got to
beginning,
save him.
was a fan.
This was the last movie he was ever in. He retired from acting after this.
Okay, well, I had talk about going out on a high note.
Yeah, this was the last one. This was it. So that's basically what we see next. Is Max is sent to the underworld and he meets Master. He meets Blaster, and he starts
Yes.
shoveling some pig shit. And this
Yep.
is also where he meets a character where they only have like one scene together,
Yeah.
but dear God, does he become relevant later on? And
Oh yeah.
this is the part of the movie where I'm like, I really feel like that's not the best written part of it.
No.
First off, Max talks way more than he ever has, and he talks
Oh
more
yeah.
in the first 20 minutes of this movie. I feel like he talks more than he has in the last two movies combined.
Yeah. This definitely feels like a post Lethal Weapon Mel
But
Gibson
it's
role.
not, which is weird. Which is
Oh
weird.
really?
It's not.
Oh,
It's 2 years
I'm
before Lethal
sorry.
Weapon. Yeah,
2 years before. Oh,
2 years
yeah.
before Lethal Weapon. This is the last like exploitation film he does for a really long time. He's only going to be doing
Oh,
A-list stuff after this. Yeah,
so he didn't
I
quite
feel
get there
like
yet.
no, I feel like what is though is this is the first Mad Max movie that is Hollywood, American movie,
Oh,
American
okay,
money.
that's where
So I
that's the
think you get
feeling.
some of it there where it's like, okay, like it just something feels off. It doesn't quite feel like it's a Mad Max movie following Road Warrior, which is just so
Yeah,
striking and different
I'm with
than
that.
this.
Yeah, because yeah, then you get it's more of like that makes actual all the sense in the world now. Like it has that American like action movie feel to it, like that
Yeah,
80s action movie
yeah.
feel.
Which I
Whereas,
don't hate. I don't hate.
no, 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 no.
I have an
It just
appreciation for it.
oh
Definitely.
yeah, absolutely. It just
It's just
kind of
it's not
it
Mad Max.
veers. Yeah, it veers away.
It's not
So,
Mad Max. Right? It's not Mad Max.
but yeah, you can definitely okay, yeah. You see, yeah, this is definitely where you see Mel Gibson kind of becoming Mel
Oh yeah.
Gibson.
Oh yeah. This is Mel firmly becoming like I am going to ascend to A-list Hollywood.
Yeah.
I want more lines, I want more money, all of
Hmm.
that starts happening. He's no longer like I'm going to be an actor and
Yeah,
pretend
yeah,
and just basically have six lines in this movie and be fine with that. No,
yeah,
no. I want more lines. So,
yeah. He
more
wanted to
lines
be
he does
more
receive.
of a front man, less of a less of
Yeah.
just letting
Yeah, definitely. And so Max, he
oh
ends up
yeah,
meeting Master Blaster, and they don't necessarily hit it off so well.
no,
But he does learn that Blaster has a sensitivity to a certain whistle that Max has.
that's right.
This Chekhov's whistle is relevant later on. So Master Blaster shows off his control over the city by setting up an embargo and forcing Tina Turner to announce via intercom to the entire city who runs Bartertown. And he makes her do
Master
it several
Blaster.
times. Several times. Master
Yes.
Blaster runs Bartertown.
Yep.
And this is shortly thereafter Max meets with Tina and or Auntie as she's called, and they
Yep.
tell him like, okay, well here's how the next step was you have to challenge him to a fight. And so
Hmm.
Max does because Blaster has taken Max's car and has forced
Yes.
him to basically deactivate the bomb that he has underneath it, which he had the
Hmm.
similar bomb in Mad Max 2 underneath his
Hmm.
car then as well, before
Yep.
that car got wrecked.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
he has another bomb here, which is big old dynamite rigged explosion. How
Yep.
Max learned how to rig a dynamite explosion, I don't know, but
Yeah.
he figured it out somehow. And he undoes it. Master Blaster has his car. He's parading it through town, showing off. I feel like Master Blaster, at least I can't see him as anything other than like kind of being reminiscent, at least in 2025, of a certain politician ascending to a power very soon. Egotistical maniac who seems to be only in it for himself, using his power
Yeah. Being
to
hoisted up
really,
by someone much larger in, I don't know,
yes,
power or something,
yeah,
you
a
know?
billionaire
Yeah.
hosting
Yes. Hoisting up
master.
a tiny
in
man of a
this in
man.
this in this in this analogy, I guess Elon would be Blaster.
Yes. Yes.
He's a
But
simple
instead of
boy.
like inst really that's true. Especially because I don't know, did you see recently oh
Yeah, I did
I
see. I saw
yeah,
it. I
about the
saw what his dad said.
Diablo thing? Oh
Yeah,
no, did you
yeah.
see the thing?
Oh,
Like
I didn't
he
even see
apparent
the Diablo thing. He cheats at Diablo.
yes,
What
because
a
so
fucking
the
nerd. Diablo
I
3.
mean no, it was like the I think it
Does he
was
play?
either
Does he play
4.
Diablo 4? What a fucking bitch. Of course he
It
plays
was either
Diablo
4
4.
or the online one, the
I don't give a fuck
mobile one.
about no one that gives a fuck about Diablo is playing Diablo 4, I don't think. I feel like
Oh yeah,
you
no.
play Diablo 3, you play Diablo 2, where you fuck off. And
Exactly.
that's it.
But yeah, so he apparently had this like really awesome character, and then I guess he live streamed him playing it, and everybody
Of
was
course
like,
he did.
"Why did you just get rid of that?" Or why? And he was just playing like someone who had never played the game before, or like
He
someone.
probably hasn't.
So it was something like I think he like had like paid for his character to be boosted or something.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
it
I can
does.
see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see
So
that.
yeah,
I've
I could
done
see
that.
him
I
being
haven't. I mean, I
Blaster.
haven't paid to have a character boosted. I've had my friends do it.
Oh yeah.
I've sat at the entrance of a dungeon while you and Chris ran me through it while I got
Yep.
very, very, very drunk. And to the point that when I got to the level to play with y'all, I couldn't play anymore because I was having a good old time. I miss
Oh yeah.
we gotta do more of that, play some more Diablo soon.
Hell yeah.
So he lays down the challenge, and this is where we get introduced to Thunderdome. And I love how the
Yes.
crowd chants and just keeps chanting and repeating things over and over and
Oh
over again.
yes.
Makes it very fun. Makes it a super fun time. Two man
Oh
enter,
yeah.
one man leaves. Two man enter, one man leaves.
Yeah.
And this is where I return to my notes section because this is where we get another little thing that I was talking about where I
Ooh.
got some notes to lay down here. So the Mad Max series has an interesting connection to pro wrestling. And I mentioned last
Uh,
time that I was going to talk about it because it becomes super
that's
obvious in
right.
this movie, more so than any other movie. But it has
Hmm.
existed since the very first one. Here's what I'm talking about. So Dusty Rhodes, professional
Hmm.
wrestler, famous man, recently or passed not too long ago. His
Yeah.
son, Cody Rhodes, is currently the one of the more successful, popular wrestlers in the WWE. He just
Oh,
appeared on
that's cool.
Netflix, making all kinds of money.
I see. I hadn't
Anyway,
watched that yet, or
yeah,
I've never caught that.
I haven't either, honestly. I just
Yeah.
reading off facts that I looked up.
Oh, there you go.
Dusty Rhodes, however, I do know Dusty. I grew up watching 80s and
Oh
90s
yeah.
wrestling. My dad was a big Texas wrestling fan. Dusty Rhodes went to West Texas A&M University, not that far from where
Oh.
I grew up and where you are currently living.
Yep.
And so Dusty Rhodes loved himself some Tina Turner, and so he went to the movie theater and he saw himself Beyond Thunderdome. And
Hmm.
what he took from that was a steel cage match, a steel cage
Uh,
match where two teams enter, one team leaves. and he would call it the War Games, and this would become one of the most popular wrestling stipulations in wrestling history. It's still used to this day. When there's a big blow off match where you have a bunch of people, about 10 of them, that just need to
Hmm.
fucking kill each other. You'd throw them in together in a War Games match. And yeah, growing up in the 90s, watching WCW, you always got fucking pumped up whenever you got to
Yep.
like November and it got time for War Games to see who was going to be. And it obviously it got worse over time once you got Hulk
Right.
Hogan and everything. It kind of took a downward spiral. However,
Yeah.
not the only connection to pro wrestling with the Mad Max universe.
Oh.
We enter into a few more. There is obviously the famous tag team, the Road Warriors, who went by the
Yep.
name of the Legion of Doom in WWF, and their WWF ripoff counterparts, Demolition, also dressed like Mad Max characters. There was a WCW ripoff, and who was in there for a cup of coffee, called Lord Humongous, literally
Hmm.
dressed like him, same name as the
Oh,
character.
wow.
Copyright be damned, bitch.
Right.
Kevin Nash, the famous wrestler, and Al
Yeah.
Green, less famous wrestler, but Al Green
Hmm.
was also pretty good, by the way. Uh, they wrestled as a tag team called the Master Blasters.
Ooh.
And
That's really on the nose.
currently shitting all over AEW wrestler Chris Jericho. His
Hmm.
nickname was the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, which is obviously
Ah.
Lord Humongous from Mad Max 2's
Yep.
little catchphrase there. So you see a lot of that, a lot of references to wrestling, and I kind of enjoy. And so
Yes.
apparently, a lot of wrestling people really got into this movie specifically when it comes to the steel cage match, which
Oh yeah.
honestly is not filmed very well, but it's
I
entertaining.
agree. It is very entertaining.
It's hard at certain times to figure out what the fuck is going on. It maybe
Yep.
goes on for a bit too long at times,
Right.
or maybe just like a lot of nothing is happening, just a lot of bouncing around. Like there's like
Yes.
10 different times where Blaster just runs headlong at Max with a spear,
Yes.
misses, runs the other way, misses, runs the other, just keeps doing this back and forth and back and forth and back and
Yeah.
forth. And I get he's a simple child, right? I understand. I'm familiar with Elon, but I still feel like, at a certain point, it seems a little ridiculous. That's all I'm saying. So the fight goes back and forth. They both have different advantages and disadvantages, and you kind of goes both ways. Obviously, you know how you don't know how it's going to end. You think Max is going to kill him, but that's not exactly what happens. So Max sees an opening when he sees his whistle on the ground, and he knows
Yep.
from previously Chekhov's whistle is going to have some role to play here. And so he
Yes.
blows the whistle, which messes with Blaster's ability to think, and this allows Blaster to be defeated by Max. And so you think
Yes.
Max is going to kill Blaster. That's not actually what happens. His helmet falls off, and Max sees that he's basically just like a simple child. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
really understand the situation. And
Yeah. Is there some like developmental disability or
yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah. And that's when Master runs in and explains the situation and kind of doesn't thank Max for not killing his boy, but definitely seems to appreciate the fact that
Y-
Max didn't kill him. However,
Yeah.
this is also where Max slips up and lets it know that Tina hired him, and
Yes.
which is the first rule they told him to not let known. And this sets off the crowd as well, but also results in Tina's gang and Iron Bar, their jackass, the Wile E. Coyote motherfucker.
Yeah.
He shoots and kills Blaster. So
Yeah.
that's where we see
Real heartless.
Blaster. Yeah, real heartless, which just breaks up Master. Has a real heart to heart moment, and just really is upset about
Absolutely.
basically like his son dying.
Yeah. Basically.
So this is the part we were talking about earlier, where Tina gets pissed and she jumps into the pit and
Yes.
tries to love someone. And she gets in the
Oh
cage
my
and she
God.
says Max has busted a deal and he must face the wheel.
That's right. Bust a deal.
Bust a
Face
deal,
the
face the
wheel.
wheel. Bust a deal, face the wheel. Another connection to wrestling, WCW as well. Dusty Rhodes also took spin the wheel, make the deal. So they had a whole setup where you would spin the
Uh,
wheel and it would have random match stipulations. And same thing here.
ah.
You got to spin the wheel and you see what happens to you. Do you know the wheel? Do you know
I do not know
the
the wheel.
I will tell you the different options on the wheel, and then do you have a D10?
I have a D10 right
All
here.
right, we can roll a D10 and see what wheel you would have got. So here are
Ooh.
our options for the wheel: acquittal,
Okay.
amputation,
Oh no.
Auntie's choice,
Oh yeah.
death,
Yeah, that makes sense.
forfeit goods,
Oh man.
gulag,
Yep. Oh god.
which is what Max gets,
Yep.
hard labor,
Okay.
life imprisonment,
Uh
spin again,
oh no.
and the last one is underworld.
Uh
All right, so give us
all right.
a dice roll and see what we get.
All right, here we go. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. It'd be really cool if you could.
Well, we'll see. Didn't hear anything though.
I got 5.
Okay, 5 is forfeit goods. So you need to give us all
Ah.
your shit.
Well, luckily I have almost nothing, so
Well, almost is not nothing.
yeah, I was
Hand
gonna
it
say
over.
now. Man,
So
this post-apocalypse isn't as cool as I thought it would be, man.
yeah, Tina has a very harsh system but it is a system, you
It's a
know.
system.
It's the
It's
most
it
advanced society we have seen in any of these movies so far.
yeah, so far, yeah.
Like, yes,
And
it's
that really
heartless,
is
yes, it's cruel, but there's an order. You break a deal, you
yeah,
face the wheel.
that's
You fight
right.
somebody,
And
you fucking go to the Thunderdome, bitch.
that's why like Tina seems like the way more successful, more driven, more like less of like optimistic and more,
Yeah,
pragmatic
yeah,
than like in Road Warrior with the Mick Jagger looking guy.
yeah. She's not
Um,
looking for another hero, right?
yeah,
She
that's
knows
right.
that this is it. Like, this is it.
Yeah, this is,
So let's do the best we can with what we got, and
yeah,
let's establish some rules, some order, and Bartertown.
it's
It's not where I would want to live,
no, but
but it has a
honestly,
system in
yeah,
place.
it
There's a
it it
society, man.
there's it functions, people make it, like
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
whole,
yeah.
but and yeah, like you say, it's not ideal, but
It's not
honestly,
ideal.
what can you expect
Far
out
from
there?
ideal. You know, it's not it's not ideal, but
Nope.
exactly. What can you expect on there? So Max gets the gulag, and
Yep.
he's about to get his ass sent on a horse to just ride the wastelands until the horse dies. They
Yeah.
do put a funny hat on him at least, right? They put
I
a
I
funny
was
hat on him. Why not?
I wanted to look it up. I didn't actually end up looking it up. I wanted to see if there was any kind of like Australian or some kind of like cultural significance of that head.
Hmm.
If it was like a mascot or something. I never looked it up though. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still wonder if it was like a
I'm not sure.
if if somebody in Australia watched it and was like, oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah. So
So
Max is sent out to the wastelands, and this is immediately where we say the movie is kind of like two halves because
yes.
the first half kind of ends here, and the
Yep.
second half kind of begins.
It's
And
a very
unfortunately,
clear line of demarcation.
it is a very clear line. It's a very clear
Yeah.
line. And up to now, it's not been my favorite Mad Max movie, but I'm with it, right? He's in a
Yeah.
society. It's a society that he doesn't necessarily want to be a part of, but he's in there looking
Mm-hmm.
for somebody. He's
Right.
thrust into this role. He's doing a job. He's still just doing whatever it takes to survive.
Yes.
I get it. I get what he's going through, right? It's making sense. He has this realization as he's about to kill Blaster that like he's gone too far into the madness, like we talked about last time. I'm
Right.
with it so far. And then he gets sent out, and I'm like, okay, eventually he's going to come back. And in my
Mhm.
mind, I'm thinking like, if we had spent more time building these characters, then Max's time away from Bartertown could be spent just focusing on these side characters. Like, let's see what Tina is up to as she's ruling this town. Now she controls Bartertown.
Yep.
So what does her control look like? Because up till now, she's only controlled part of it, not the whole thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like what does she actually have? What is her vision for it? We don't really see that. We don't really see what Iron Bar and the other guys are doing when Max is gone. We don't really know. Like, are they terrorizing people? Are they exercising power? Like, I feel like they want Tina to be a villain, but I just have a hard time seeing her as a villain, so much
Yeah.
more as like an anti-hero. Like,
I was gonna
she's
say,
not
yeah.
doing anything really bad. Like,
No, in
she
fact,
told him what to do, and he broke that rule. Yeah, you broke a
yep,
deal, you face the wheel.
that's
It's a
right.
very clear rules that we have here. Okay, well, chance be
Yeah,
damned. Like, you got the gulag. All right, cool.
yep.
Worst things could happen. They could have
Oh
just
yeah,
killed your ass.
yeah. Really, that one was on there.
Yeah,
So,
it was on there. Yeah.
so
So
at
it's
least this you get a chance.
yeah, so that like the movie is kind of two halves in that sense that like you have this first half that kind of ends and the second half kind of begins here. And the second half is not my favorite. This is the kind of where the movie begins to lose me a little, becomes a little bit too
Yeah,
much Return of the Jedi, which is
right.
fine because
It's
the
fine.
context from Empire to Jedi is kind of there, but we're
Yes.
going from Road Warrior to Jedi,
Yeah.
right? We just stopped rapes in the last movie and
Right.
saw naked fuckboys getting shot in the head with boomerangs, and now we
Yeah.
are hanging out with a bunch of kids, looking
Hanging out
through
with a
little
bunch of kids.
view scoops.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a little
Now I
different, you
will
know.
be. I'll be honest with you. I didn't really mind this all that much, and I think I don't know. I might have minded it more early, or like years ago after rewatching it.
Yeah,
And
this
being a
time it
little bit
didn't
older. But
bother
this
you.
time I was like, I don't know. There's something about it that just kind of I don't know. I appreciated this time. I don't know
I
what
will
it was.
say that like tonally it is very different, and I can
Oh
see
yeah.
what he was going for. And while I don't necessarily like it, like as I get to the end of it, I'll talk about it. I do
Yeah.
appreciate it. I do
Right.
appreciate it. I feel like I
I
see what he was going for. I see what he
I
was
think
going for.
the thing, and maybe this is something I felt with watching it because I didn't actually know that when you told me about the that this was really planned for its own movie. Um, that I had that feeling of like this could have been something else.
Yeah, should have been
And I
probably.
think, yeah, I think it would have actually been really good as its
Yeah,
own different thing.
yeah,
So
and
it felt,
yeah I wrote
and
that down too as well.
oh, okay, yeah. See that because it does have potential. It's a little sandwiched. It's a little
Yeah,
squished, but
yeah.
I still kind of appreciate it. I think I appreciated it more this time than I have in the
Hmm.
past. I mean, like when I was younger, I really liked it. I got older, I kind of was like, all right, it's not. It's a little, it's a little bit little teddy bears, that kind of thing.
Ewoks. Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, I just wanted, like it felt because at the time I felt Ewoks were like little teddy bears,
Oh yeah,
just
yeah.
getting in the way of my sci-fi
Oh
movie.
yeah.
But
A lot of people forget about how big of a deal that was. I mean, I wasn't
right.
even around, and I know it was a big deal just because
Yeah.
keeping up on my
But
Star Wars.
yep. Yeah, but I think this time, I don't know. I just really appreciate it. And I would have liked to see something like this on its own.
Yeah, I
But
agree. I
it's
think
definitely yeah, especially outside of this.
yeah, yeah. So Max is sent to basically die of exposure, and this is
Yep.
where I think some of the bad writing of the movie kind of shows off. And I
Yeah.
feel like this is one of the reasons why George maybe is not the necessarily the best writer at times.
Hmm.
But so what happens within a span of seconds is the horse dies. Max almost dies.
Yeah.
Max survives. Max gets out of a sinkhole. Max almost dies from getting out of the sinkhole.
Hmm.
Then is rescued by a water from a monkey who was sent to him from a character that only shared one scene with him.
Yeah.
Not the best.
That
Not the
not the
best.
best.
Not the best. Not the best. There's a lot I would have there's a lot you could just yeah, I don't know. That whole
Yeah, it
subsection here, the whole like transition from part A of the movie to part B of the movie is
yeah.
really, really bad.
Yeah,
And that I
really.
think that part of it is where more people get lost than just the second part of the movie. Once he's with the kids, it's okay. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a little bit like Lost Boys, Robin Hoodie, kind of got its own little
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
Peter Pan kind of thing going on. Like it's fine. I get it, but this middle part here is a little rough. Like so
Yeah.
that happens, and then this is where I wrote down like if we had an ideal supporting cast where we actually developed them and spent time with them in Bartertown before all of this happened, we could have left Max and thought he was gonna die and focused on the characters in Bartertown, building up to his return to fight back
Hmm.
against the oppression that Auntie had established. I thought
That would be
that would
cool.
be a better direction to put the movie in. That is not what happens.
Yeah.
Instead, Max is rescued, and we kind of get this weird Lord of the Flies thing here
Yeah.
happening. So these people are mostly children, and they speak a language of sorts. It's kind of
Yeah.
fractured English mixed with a lot of repetition and a lot of
Yeah.
whatever they find. Like they can find chunks and remnants of old children's toys and old pop culture artifacts. And
Yeah.
from those things, they've kind of taken and derived meaning and sometimes like salvation, which I think is the
Yeah.
most interesting thing about these kids. This is the part of the movie that I was saying, like this part, the post apocalyptic Lord of the Flies, that's kind of interesting. Like having this
Yeah.
group of kids that's like all of these kids were born after the end. So they
Yes.
never knew a society before the end of the world happened. That's
Right.
that's interesting.
That
That's some
is.
teenage caveman kind of shit. I'm into that.
Yes.
Like that's some cool shit. I just don't necessarily think it needs to be a Mad Max movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not have Captain Walker or whoever that is, or have him be a different person? Just make a
Yeah.
different movie. I would have been fine with that, right?
Yeah.
Or even eliminate the Captain Walker subplot and just like tell me about these kids and how they are discovering what the truth of like how the world ended or whatever, like something like
Yeah,
that.
really. You
Also
could
would
even
have been
have
interesting.
like a female protagonist or something. She gets
Yeah,
introduced,
yeah,
something.
something like
You know.
I don't even want to say like a mother figure finds these kids and
Well,
like kind of
no.
saves them, but something you could. There's a lot of different things you could have
There's a
done,
lot of different ways you could
and
yeah.
it doesn't really go in any of those directions. Instead, it just kind of
No.
shoehorns Max in here,
Yeah.
and his interaction with the kids is interesting because it happens so fast that you kind of like that's kind of another place where it loses me. Like it goes from him
Right.
being kind of a dick to these kids to him like risking his life to save them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I wish there was a little bit more characterization that built up to that. Like, yeah, I know from the first movie and the second movie he has a fondness for kids, right? His little
Right.
Sprague died in Mad Max One.
Yeah.
The feral kid and him had a real thing that like they had a
Yeah.
love there, and the feral kid remembers him forever. And then
Yep.
his interaction with all these kids, like I get all that. I just wish we would have either had more time for Max to be here with the kids or more time
Yeah.
for Max to be in Bartertown, but not for him to be in both because it just
Right.
kind of makes the movie seem a little like it's of two minds and two halves, which
Right.
doesn't help that it also has two directors because that kind of adds to the whole idea of like it just seems like kind of a movie of two parts that don't really fit
Right.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so Max he finally wakes up and they confront him and tell him, or they don't, well, they kind of confront him by shouting at him and he's
Yeah.
fucking loses it at them, yelling them,
Oh,
shut up, shut up.
mm, and they're just repeating everything he says so loud, and I was
Yeah,
with him.
I wrote
They
down
captured that.
Max now knows what it feels like to be a teacher in America. There you go. That's what it feels like some days.
Oh no.
Imagine that for 90 minutes. There you
I was
go.
gonna say, oh
Try
man.
not to lose your mind. So they think he's Captain Walker, which is kind of who they see in these, like I said, these artifacts and things that they have found from which they have kind of made a story up about what the world was because
Yeah.
they don't know any better, right? They
Yeah.
were all born after the fact. So this is where I put, and this is kind of what I thought was interesting that originally he wanted to turn it into a TV show after this because I thought this would have been a great idea for a TV show, like
Oh yeah.
Max wandering the wastelands, and then at the end of the first season, like we said, like kung fu style, he meets these kids. And
Mm-hmm.
now the second season or the first season, if you wanted to get him to the kids faster, is him like interacting with all these kids. And now he went from losing his chance to raise a kid with Sprague to now having his chance to raise all of these kids, right? I thought
Mm-hmm.
that would have been a cool TV show.
Yeah. Well,
Instead, we get it very, very quick version of that in this movie.
yes. Would you like to know? There is actually a TV show that's sort of like that, though.
Is there? Go ahead.
It was a New Zealand show.
That makes sense.
From yeah, it started in like '99 or it was like '98, '99, something like that, and it ran for like 5 seasons. Here's the fun part: there's about 50 episodes per season, so it's a lot.
Oh,
There's a
damn.
lot to the
Nice.
show.
What is it
Yeah,
on? Is it
it's
streaming on
called the
anything?
well, last I saw it streaming was on Amazon Prime, but it's
All
called
right.
The Tribe.
Oh, okay. I'll give it a
I
look.
absolutely love that show. But I like New Zealand. I like everything New Zealand. I feel sort of the same way about Australia, not as much.
Yeah.
I just really like New Zealand a lot. So
Makes sense. Yeah, I would love to
Yeah.
go to Australia, New Zealand, but God, it's such a long plane flight from
Oh, it
from
would be.
America. Like,
Yeah. That.
if it wasn't like a 14 or 16 something crazy hour plane flight, my ass would go to Australia. I don't even
Oh yeah.
mind that half the things there want to kill me. That's fine.
Yeah.
And
That's
I'm just
why I
talking
prefer
about
New
the
Zealand.
people.
Nice. Well, only the ones that meet you. Anyway.
Well,
Um.
they have every reason to, you know.
Oh Lord. But yeah, that's
I would make so
I'm
many bad Australian references, they would have to pull the knife on me at some point and just be like, all right, we're killing this fucking asshole.
well, especially
You know,
because as soon as they pull a knife, you'd be like, "That's not a
that's
knife."
not a knife. Well, that's a knife. And then get shanked, blood spurt everywhere. And we
Oh
never
man.
saw him ever again, but we leave the light on for him.
I wonder if they do that like how in what was it, Wayne's World, where he points at the sign, or the guitar store, he's like, "No stairway." Do they? I wonder if they have that in No Crocodile Dundee.
It's a fair question. We got to ask the audience. If there's anyone
Yeah.
from Australia that listens, I don't know if there is. I know we have a few Japanese listeners.
Oh, awesome.
Konnichiwa. But I don't
Hey.
know if we have any Australian listeners. But maybe after talking about these Mad Max movies for a month, we'll get a few.
Maybe. I
Let us
wonder.
know,
Yeah.
Australians. The only Australians I ever met were the ones I used to play World of Warcraft with, and the only thing I know about them is that Foster's sucks. That's
Oh
about the
yeah.
only conversation I ever had with them was about beer. So Max is hanging out with these kids, and these kids have developed a whole history of the world based on these like pop culture relics and artifacts that they have found.
Hmm.
Another part of the movie that I think is really interesting. I wish we had more time to spend on this, and
Yeah.
unfortunately we don't, because Max then breaks the news to them that there is no Tomorrow Land, that he's not
Mhm.
Captain Miller, that everything that you guys have been talking about or thinking about, it's all gone. You know,
Hmm.
it all went away. And so the kids don't necessarily take this news the best,
No. Their
but they're ready
entire
to go.
society they built is on nothing.
Yeah, I mean it'd be like you know, I don't know, telling a I was trying to try like telling a person of a certain religion that like everything you've ever believed is wrong. You're just it's all a lie. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know.
In
So a little soul crushing for some of them. Others of them
right.
handle it different ways. Several of them decide that they're going to take off into the wasteland. Max warns them against this by first telling them that the first thing you're going to do is run into Bartertown, and if you make it through there,
Yes.
you'll die. And then he
Yeah.
gets his point across by shooting at the children.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I'm going to tell Max, you know, this is not the best way to handle this situation.
I'm glad you said that.
Don't pull out a gun on the kids. It's the first rule of being a teacher, right? Um, so, and this is kind of the
Yeah.
weird. This is where the movie gets a little weird. This is also where what I think one of the major scenes of the movie was cut. So a part of the movie that was cut that has not been released yet, I believe, is
Oh.
Max was supposed to have a dream sequence where around this period in the movie, I believe, he was supposed to have a dream of his wife and his child and the scene from the first movie. And
Oh.
in the scene, I believe it was framed in the way that like he awakens and he realizes in some context that he has become as bad as Toe Cutter.
Oh.
And this is what is supposed to compel him to help these kids. Instead, he gets woken up and told, "Hey, they some of them left," and he goes out and sees their footprints and says, "All right, I'll go get them. Give me as much
Yeah.
water as I can carry." But up till this point, he hasn't really liked these kids.
No.
He's kind of a dick to them. I don't
Yeah,
really
he's
think they like him. Right? He basically
right.
told them their whole god was a fucking lie. Their whole
Yeah.
system was a lie. Like if you leave this place, you're gonna die. This is
Hmm.
where we're staying forever. It's
Yeah.
just his
Well,
reasoning for
because
doing this is not as well developed as I
yeah,
think it
no,
should be.
you think by what's happened so far, because he was kind of seemed happy, like he found a place where he can just stop, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And you'd think that those that want to leave are trying to get everybody to leave. Leaving and dying would be kind of a good thing for that part of him, that
yeah. Like
because they would be threatening that.
yeah, like another thing you could have taken and done is you could have taken the idea of like them deciding that like okay, Tomorrow Land isn't real. but we're going to go out into the wasteland and we're going to go make our own Tomorrowland or something like
Right.
that. Like having the kids have some kind of like realization that they want to go and do something, and then Max kind of going with them. Instead, he just kind of, the movie happens to him, right? He's just like,
Right.
all right, the movie's going that way, so I guess I got to go that way too. And so he follows them into the wasteland, and eventually, after a lot of walking, he does meet up with the kids.
Right.
Yeah. And shortly after meeting up with them and saving them once again,
Yep.
he
Another sinkhole. Yeah.
another sinkhole. Yes, yes. Which
Yeah.
is why did you? I don't know why we needed the one from the first. If you were going to show it up again, Max easily got out of it the first time. It
Yeah.
wasn't presented as like a big thing. He mentions that like if you're going to get eaten up by sinkholes, so obviously these are things that people know exist in the deserts. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't know. Yeah, like I said, that particular scene of all three of those things, like we mentioned earlier, happening back to back to back, just kind of
It's
seems like,
disjointed.
yeah, there's a lot in the second half of this movie that is very disjointed, where you can definitely feel like this was a movie that was its own thing, and then Max got thrown in, and we'll
Hmm.
just make him fit by changing little bits here and there,
Yeah.
and
Squishing it up.
then when you take out key scenes like that dream sequence, we lose a lot of like the context for why Max is even participating in this part of the movie
Yeah.
because like he doesn't
For real.
clearly. I don't think he wants to.
Right? No. Yeah. And
Yeah, so like I said, Max is he's dragged along to do help these kids out. I guess he doesn't have shit all else going on. The Raiders are in off season, so he's not doing anything right now. So he agrees to help them. He eventually finds them after walking and walking and walking, saves them
hmm
from a sinkhole, and this leads them eventually to getting into Bartertown via the
Yes.
underworld, where they're going to sack the city, and we get to the end of the movie. Fun fact here, the movie needed so many pigs that it would have actually impacted the Australia pig market. So much
Oh.
so that they couldn't do that. So they had to go to a pig farmer and like borrow his pigs because of how many pigs they needed for this movie. I
Wow.
thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah. So this is where we get a direct reference to Star Wars because as Mel is running through the tunnels in the underworld, he literally does the Han Solo thing where he runs down a hallway chasing somebody,
Yeah.
runs back down the hallway being chased by a bunch of other people. It's a very funny scene. It's very
Yeah.
Looney Tunes. It's Buster Keaton. It's great.
Oh yeah.
It's a simple thing, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, so the plan does work though because Auntie looks down into Underworld and she sees Max and she sees what's going on. And Bartertown is 100% snafu by the end of it and is
Yep.
basically blowing up and is on fire. But
Oh
Auntie,
yeah.
in her second big speech, explains that they will rebuild. And it seems like the town is kind of cool with this idea. Like,
Yeah.
which kind, like I said, we don't spend enough time with her to see her become
Right.
this like tyrannical leader that we want to see defeated. So at the end of the
Right.
day, it just seems like Max is showing up to fuck up this kind of like well-meaning woman's town who isn't
Yeah.
really doing anything to him anymore. Like she's kind of, you got the gulag, you're gone. Like you're out of my
Yeah.
world. You're basically out of this movie. You went and did a different movie, and now you're back in this movie. Why the fuck are you in this movie, Max? Like, because basically what happens. And so she says, like, we're gonna fucking go kill him. And this is where we shoehorn in the only car chase scene in the movie. And it
Yes.
it is a good one. It is a good
It
one.
is a good one.
And it's cool that it takes place like on a railroad track, so
I
like
thought
you
that was
don't
cool.
Max like can't like maneuver as much like because of
Right.
where they're stuck. That was clever. That was
And
cleverly done.
I don't think they really had much in the way of like weaponry at all either.
No,
So
no,
that
no. They're
was
basically like, I mean, literally, they get in the car and he's like, "So what's the plan?" And the guy goes, "Plan? We don't have a
that's
fucking
right.
plan. Wait, what do you mean plan? Like, we're just
Uh,
going. This movie doesn't have a plot. We're just fucking saying it
right.
through." So I do enjoy the battle scene quite a bit. It,
Yes.
it it is offers something new with the railroad tracks,
Hmm.
and it is played more for laughs. You get Iron Bar, fucking Johnny Knoxville, whatever you want to call him, who just constantly keeps almost dying,
Yeah.
and it kind of becomes comical at a certain point because it's just like he keeps getting close to dying, but he doesn't die. He keeps getting, then
Yeah.
he almost dies, and he doesn't die, then he just keeps happening. So Tina and her gang, their real goal is to get Master. They want him back in the city, because with him she can control the underworld and can continue producing methane, which can continue powering Bartertown or whichever new
Hmm.
version of Bartertown I guess she's going to go after. And this is really
Yeah,
the only like this is presented as really like her only like negative quality is that she is basically seemingly wanting to take Master and put him in like a position of like indentured servitude where like he has
right.
to serve this town in some capacity. uh
Hmm.
Other than that, like what is she doing that's bad? The people seem to like her. She has rules, she has
Yeah,
order. I it's hard for
yeah.
me to feel like she should be killed. But
Yeah, really, no, yeah, yeah, it was hard to see her as anything other than just like, that Mick Jagger character. Like he's kind of,
yeah, yeah.
we should sort of be rooting for her.
Yeah, so the car chase scene kind of comes to an abrupt end at a certain point
Yeah.
because then there's a sandstorm coming on, and this sandstorm actually happened in real life. So they did
Oh,
all have to go run and hide from it. Apparently,
wow.
Tina Turner had to go hide inside of a car while this happened. So fucking Iron Bar somehow is still alive though, and they're after them as
Yeah.
well. So now Max's plan is to go and find the not gyro captain
Yep.
and borrow his plane so they can get out of this little pickle they found themselves in.
Well, they kind of just happen on the kid, don't they? On the rail.
Yeah, so the kid shows up on the rail and says like this is a stick up, and then
Yeah.
he looks behind them and sees the sandstorm coming and goes like, "Oh shit, dad," and takes off, and then also sees all the other cars coming also and kind
Yes.
of, so yeah, there's a lot going when it comes to that part
Yeah.
there. And kind of very silly. Like I said, the tone is very different than the other Mad Max movies.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah. So they get in the airplane and well, by force, pretty
Yeah.
much. And this is where we get our final showdown where the not gyro captain tells
Yeah.
Max, "I don't have enough runway to get off," and Max says, "I got you." And he does. He kind of tends to sacrifice himself by
Yes.
driving straight at the oncoming cars in order to provide a coverage for the plane to get up out of there, and it does work. And
Yep.
they are able to fly away. And Max is left for dead, although he does not die. Auntie
Right.
finds him and just says, "Ain't we a pair?" and
Yeah.
leaves him to it. And
Yeah.
that's where Auntie disappears. And this is the first of our quote unquote Mad Max villains that doesn't meet any comeuppance. She is not killed. She
Nope.
leaves to, I guess, presumably go start back up Bartertown
Yeah.
and do pretty well for herself. As she said before the apocalypse, she was nothing, and
Yeah.
now she is basically president of this whole settlement. So
Yeah.
obviously she's making pretty well for herself.
Totally.
And this is where we leave Max and we
Hmm.
hear from our narrator, which is the girl who was in the airplane and who's been
Yes.
telling us the story this whole time. And we pan back to see all the different skyscrapers they're flying back. And you can see that they're flying for quite
Yes.
a while. And this is when we get the whole story that she's telling us about Max. And this is similar to the second one as well, where we reveal at the end that the narration, the person telling us the story the whole time, has been a person from years later,
Yes.
remembering a story and telling to other people about the oral
Hmm.
tradition of Mad Max and kind of keeping that theme going, which I really appreciated that they kind
I
of
like that.
tied that back in as well, which is, I think,
Absolutely.
a theme that Miller kind of wants to keep exploring and continues
Hmm.
in the next two movies, as we'll see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she ends it by saying, we never saw him ever again, but we always leave the light on for him in case one day he returns, because we know one day he will return.
Yeah.
And that is where we end the movie. Cut to black. Get another exit with Tina Turner telling us we
Yes.
don't need another hero.
Oh, such a good song.
So, final thoughts on Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. You want to go first?
I will go first.
All right.
So I would say, I've kind of gone through phases on this movie. Like when I was younger, loved it, thought it was very playful. I enjoyed that a lot. Got older, was very annoyed by that. Now I kind of appreciate it, and now I think the main thing about it, and we talked about it a lot, is that it's two fully functional movies just got jammed together and kind of make a mess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like we have a Mad Max movie and this other movie with these kids, which I think, they should have been made separately, but I understand how they ended up with them together and they kind of couldn't back out, so I get that.
Yeah.
Um, I like a lot of the with all the other, with the other Mad Max movies, the society, like the messages that they put out there, the parallels, the satire, what they're talking about, like Bartertown, that all it's very clear, it hits, it's that uh capitalist, everything's like you said, everything's for sale. It's very much like that. And then you get the with the kids, that's very much like people losing, like religious beliefs, or some it's like coming to face the kind of things that like they lose faith, or their faith just kind of doesn't come through. They get the wanderer, they get a Max basically telling them there is no Tomorrowland, or Tomorrowland, or whatever. That's that also hits pretty hard, and I like that a lot. So, it has a lot going for it, but it would have been better if it was two things separately.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. Like I said, growing up, this was my introduction into the Mad Max world. I approached this movie with heavy, heavy, heavy nostalgia. I distinctly
Hmm.
remember watching it on TV. I remember renting it from Blockbuster. I remember sitting up sick at nights watching it. It's one of those movies that, as a little kid, I very much appreciated it because while it was a PG-13 movie, my parents let me watch it because there's not really a whole lot of blood or killing or murder or rape or anything like you see in the second or first movies. Um, a lot of that is gone here. Instead, we have kind of a almost a PG version of Max. uh, it's not the best. It's not the worst. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It's a fucking paradox of a movie,
Yeah.
taken as a whole, taking breaking it down and looking at kind of and its parts like we do, like we've done here. I will say that it feels more like two Mad Max shorts
Mhm.
put together as a movie. So we get like Mad Max in Bartertown, and then his ostracization from Bartertown, and then Mad Max discovers the Lost Boys, and that whole thing there, and then at the end we get kind of like almost a third short of those two worlds kind of merging together,
Mhm.
and part of me just kind of wants to unmerge them and just let them exist as two separate worlds because I feel like they would have almost been better as that. But for what we get, it is not the worst movie ever made. It's not the
No, no,
best movie ever made.
no.
It might not be the best Mad Max movie ever made. I like it more than Mad Max 1. I will say that.
Right. I'm with that.
I feel like it compared to Road Warrior, it doesn't hold a
No.
candle to Road Warrior. It's two completely different kinds of movies though. And it kind of makes sense that after this movie, George Miller would take some deviation from the Mad Max universe and produce some children's movies and actually
Hmm.
direct some kids movies and some animated movies as well before eventually returning to the Mad Max universe. Because I feel like that time off away from the world kind of helped him create a more interesting universe. And I think he was able to see some of the problems with Beyond Thunderdome and maybe
Hmm.
rectify some of those with Fury Road and make it more of a interesting and comical in a lot of ways because Fury Road does have some comedy, but
Oh
it
yeah.
doesn't take away from the tone of the movie, which I feel like sometimes here it kind of does.
Yeah, right.
I do love the 80s-ness of this movie because it
Oh
is
yes.
drenched in 80s. It is so 80s. And I think that's cool about it. It's a movie that I will always identify with that time period. And how could you not? You got Tina
Hmm.
Turner wearing chainmail,
Yeah.
singing some wonderful songs. So yeah, it's not the best movie, not the worst movie. I can see why people dislike it. I can see why
Yeah.
people like it. Personally, I both dislike it and like it,
Yeah.
depending on when I've watched it and how many times I've watched it. I feel like the worst way to watch it is the way we watched it, which is back to back after watching Road Warrior,
Oh
because
yeah, no kidding.
you can't help but like compare it to Road Warrior, right? You just
Oh
can't
yeah,
help it. Whereas if you watch it away from the other Mad Max movies, you can appreciate it for being its own separate thing, because it kind of is in a way. Like we
yeah,
said, it's almost like two kind of shorts kind of put together, in both centered on Max as a character and his interactions in this post-apocalyptic wasteland.
yeah,
So, listening as we talked about Beyond Thunderdome, as we are about to ourselves get Beyond Thunderdome and get ready for
mm,
next week, where we will talk about Fury Road and see what is up as we see a change of characters,
yeah,
change of budget, and a
yeah,
completely different world that we are going to enter into as we watch Mad Max Fury Road next week. So hopefully you guys join us for that. This has been a really fun time looking at all three of these Mad Max movies back to back to back. We got two
yes,
more to go, and the next couple of weeks are going to be interesting, I think. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for continuing. Give us a like, subscribe, all that stupid shit that you got to say on
yeah,
YouTube, all that nonsense.
yes,
If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, as some people are now,
yeah,
thank you. First off, second off, give us a rating, as what people do on there. And if you are so inclined, you can give us a review, put some words into print.
yeah,
Flex your Shakespearean muscles, and
yeah.
tell us what
Get
you think about
journalistic up
us.
in here.
Yeah, as long as it's good. If it's bad, then politely go and take your review. I still want you to have a voice, it is important. But I would like you to take your review and go to this website called MySpace. Now,
There you
once you
go.
get there, you're going to have to make an account and go through some process. But once you get to that process, then you can upload your opinion. And I'm sure the 5 or 6 people that are still there will
Yeah,
love to hear of it. Is MySpace even still active? I don't even think it
I
is.
don't know.
I don't think you can even go to it anymore. But yeah, there's us for the night. This is going to be one
Yeah,
of our longer episodes, as we spent a long time getting into Beyond Thunderdome. But I
yeah.
think there's a lot to talk about, especially as
Oh
we
yeah,
kind of conclude our original three. I mean, this was the original
yeah.
trilogy for a
It
very long
was,
time. For most of my
and
life,
it's
this was it. This was
yeah.
where
Oh yeah,
Max ended. You didn't know anything else after this. It wasn't until
and
more
this
recently
was
that we got to see the continuation of the story.
yeah, and I'll talk about it more on the next one. But this was definitely my favorite trilogy of movies of all time, and still is.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely talk about that next time. So,
Yeah,
thank you guys for tuning in, and we will hear from you guys, or you will hear from us next
yeah.
week when we talk about Fury Road. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.